I actually wanted to talk about our good friend Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin, who I think is overdosing or has overdosed on red pills. Dave Rubin is overdosing on red pills, folks. Now, what does that mean? Some of you guys are what does it mean to swallow red pills? And for those who have not been paying attention, the red pill is this metaphor that a lot of people on the right, on the so-called right, a lot of conservatives like to use. It's a nod to the movie The Matrix, which I've never seen, but apparently, I guess it goes like this. Morpheus, he offers Neo the option to swallow the red pill or the blue pill. And if you swallow the blue pill, you get to go back into your simulation world and live out a simulated life and continue to not be aware of reality. Whereas if you take the red pill, you'll see reality for what it is, and then you can become part of the revolution or whatever the hell happens in the Matrix. Wasn't the sequel called Matrix Revolution? I don't know. I gotta watch those movies. Anyway, so a lot of conservatives, a lot of people on the so-called rights, especially former lefties, former left-wingers, they use the term red pilled to say, yeah, I used to be on the left. I used to be all about Bolshevik Bernie Sanders. I used to be all about, left-wing politics. And then one day I got red pilled. And it could be a variety of different reasons. One day I got red pilled. I saw how awful and crazy the left really is and how powerful and influential the left really is, which to some extent that is true. The left is awful. As Stuart Hayashi says, yeah, the red pilled metaphor is overused by now. And so a lot of these red pilled people will say, yeah, I used to be on the left and then I got red pilled. I saw reality for what it is, you guys. And I think the most notable examples of this are people like Dave Rubin and Sargon of Akkad and Tim Pool and Brandon Straka, the guy from the Walkaway movement, and Candace Owens, who after her social autopsy business, or whatever you want to call it, after that didn't work out, Candace Owens seemed to repackage herself as Red Pilled Black. That was her name on Twitter, I believe. And she repackaged herself as this red pilled conservative. And then eventually she got hired by Turning Point USA. She got discovered by Kanye West. Now she's famous. And even she's overdosing on red pills. I talked about it a few months ago. Candace Owens is now peddling conspiracy nonsense about vaccines. That's how crazy she's gone with being red pilled. She's overdosed on red pills to the extent that, when left wingers like Bill Gates try to promote vaccines and try to, discover vaccines so that we can fight coronavirus, Candace Owens, she says, well, I can't trust those vaccines. Can't trust Bill Gates. But Dave Rubin's been doing it in another way. And I say this as someone who used to really like Dave Rubin. I used to be one of his patrons. Back in 2016 when I saw what Dave was doing, and he's talked about this story numerous times about how he became red-pilled. It all started with the Sam Harris incident on Bill Maher. Sam Harris went on Bill Maher's show and was talking about all of the problems with Islamomia. And then Ben Affleck was there, that goof Ben Affleck, who's a great actor, pretty good filmmaker. Oddly enough, he directed Argo, which was about the Iranian Revolution, right? So the Islamic Revolution in Iran. So you'd think he would be more open to Sam Harris's criticisms of Islamomia. But Sam Harris, after listening to Sam Harris talk about Islam, he got all butthurt on Bill Maher. Oh, that's racist. You can't say that. And then Bill Maher says, why are liberals defending this religion that treats women like shit and throws homosexuals off of roofs? How is this? You guys get the picture. So that turned into like a however long story. And Dave Rubin was working at the Young Turks at the time, the left-wing useful idiots for communism news network, the Young Turks. And he agreed with Sam Harris, but I guess his coworkers at the Young Turks, they thought Sam Harris was being a racist. They thought he was being Islamophobic. And that's when Dave Rubin that's when he took the red pill. That was his red pill moment, was seeing how his coworkers at the Young Turks threw Sam Harris under the bus. And that's when he decided to eventually leave the network and start his own show. And I admired him for that. You got to give him credit where it's due. That does take courage to put everything on the line. Your career, your friendships with your so-called ideological allies, right? I think even the Young Turks, they've said that, they felt like it was a heel turn. They talk about Dave Rubin the same way Marty Jannetty talks about Shawn Michaels. After Shawn Michaels super kicked him through the window. They feel betrayed by Dave Rubin. I think Anna Kasparian's made numerous videos about it. So it was a two-way street. Dave Rubin goes on and makes his own show. And his first guest was Sam Harris. He brags about this. Oh, I was so happy to have Sam Harris as my first guest on the new show. And I admired him for that. I admired him for starting a new series where he would be open-minded. And he presented himself as a voice for free speech and having conversations. Right? And so that was back in like 2015, 2016. But Dave Rubin looks to be overdosing on red pills. Check this out. Where is it? Here, Donkey Kong getting his booty eaten by a Pokemon. No, I'm just kidding. So, even I guess Sarah Hayter and Dave Rubin got into it recently on Twitter back in early June. And apparently, according to Sarah Hayter, Sam Harris even said that Dave Rubin has been captured by his audience. But I want to more focus on this. So, Yoram Khazoni, who's this nationalist, he is a nationalist. He wrote a book called The Virtues of Nationalism, which was applauded by many on the right. He started the National Conservatism Conference. Yoram Khazoni said that liberals have two choices: either submit to the left or align yourself with nationalists, conservatives, and Christians. To which I said to that, you're leaving out two other options, liberty and death. Because who really wants to settle for nationalism, conservatives, and Christians? Apparently Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin says, sad but true, and I'm being pushed out by the last liberal circles as they pretend this isn't a new reality. Mr. Classical Liberal Dave Rubin is settling, right? So just 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, or whenever he left the Young Turks, he was willing to confront them on being nutty leftists, right? He's willing to constantly crap on the left and all the problems with the left. But then when it's clear that the so-called right, when the conservatives are becoming more authoritarian, when they're espousing stuff like nationalism and conservatism and Christianity, he says, oh yeah, that's sad but true. And a reason why I bring this up is because I noticed this is an attitude, a trend amongst a lot of people on the so-called right, a lot of anti-SJWs, a lot of anti-leftists. They have this attitude of, well, at least it's not the left. Whenever you criticize Trump or conservative pundits or any nonsense on the right, there's this attitude, this prevailing attitude of, well, at least it's not communism. At least it's not. I see this all the time. If you ever criticize Trump and his flaws, like a lot of people like to boast about Trump like before coronavirus. It was all, oh, Trump, look at this wonderful economy. Unemployment's at record lows, which it really isn't. And the GDP, a whopping 2%. Wow, what a great economy. Man, Trump is doing a great job. And then someone like me would come along and say, Yeah, well, I mean the stock, they'd all say, "Oh, the stock market, it's bigger and better than ever." And then you'd say, "Well, actually the stock market is probably inflated due to all the Obama era stimulus packages and the continued deficit spending under Trump. Things could be a lot better if Trump weren't actively against free trade and ruining the trade deals and imposing all these bullshit tariffs and ruining trade relations with even our allies in the European Union and Canada and whatnot." And his clampdowns on both illegal and legal immigration are probably going to have some long-term consequences. How many immigrants would come here and start businesses, invent new stuff, who aren't going to come now because of Trump's immigration policies and the continued deficit spending. That's probably going to cause a lot of problems down the road. A lot of times, you're just met with, "Oh yeah, well, at least it's not Hillary Clinton. At least it's not the left. At least it's not communism." Way to set the bar high, you guys. At least it's not communism. Imagine having this imagine having this mentality about anything else, even outside of politics, right? Imagine you're driving a car that's 20 years old and it breaks down every 2 to 3 months. And instead of thinking to yourself, "Man, I should maybe look into buying a new car. Maybe I should start saving money. Maybe I should look into some financing options. Maybe I should see if there's any good deals on car dealership websites. Maybe there's an auto auction going on nearby that I could take advantage of." Instead of thinking about ways to get a new car, you just think to yourself, "Well, at least it's not a tricycle." But back to Dave Rubin, he's settling for aligning himself with nationalist conservatives and Christians when 5 years ago he was happy to call out the left and their push, their inching toward authoritarianism. Then it happens on the right and he just settles for it. Sad but true. But it gets even worse. So recently he was on the Michael Knowles show, and there were a couple clips that really stood out where he talks about how we need religion to build a society on. So this is Mr. Classical Liberal Dave Rubin, Mr. Atheist. He used to be an atheist. If I recall correctly, Dave Rubin was an atheist, and then he slowly shifted toward being an agnostic, whatever. Still claimed to be secular, but now it looks like he's warming up to religion.
Do you think, is it enough to acknowledge, as I think, as every sensible person I know today does, as you do, as Jordan Peterson does, that you need religion, and you need a good religion?
You need religion, folks. That's what Michael Knowles is claiming, and that's what Michael Knowles has claimed for years, by the way. Michael Knowles, by the way, he's a young, cool conservative. He now has a show with Senator Ted Cruz. He does a regular show, I think. At least he's done multiple episodes. I don't know how consistent it is, but he does a YouTube podcast with Senator Ted Cruz. He has, I think, almost 200,000 followers or 300,000 followers on Twitter. He has a lot of subscribers on YouTube. He's part of the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's network. And he's insisting that you need religion, folks.
Cannot organize around anything else.
All right.
That you need religion, and you need a good religion.
Society cannot organize around anything else.
You hear that? Dave Rubin says society cannot organize around anything else but religion.
Simply cannot do it.
Simply cannot do it, guys.
Mean that there aren't.
We need God. We need the church. We need we need a deity. We need an institution that's based on divine revelation and ghost stories and angels and demons and all that stuff. We need that to organize society around. Mr. Classical Liberal, secular voice, Dave Rubin.
Individual people.
Yeah.
Sam Harris.
So there you go. So, and also, what kind of religion? That's a whole other question. Is it just Christianity? Is it a certain sect of Christianity? Is it Catholicism? Is it the Methodist Church? Is it the Westboro Baptist Church? Is it the Javaho Witnesses? I know it's Jehovah's Witness, by the way. That's a reference to Windy City Heat and the Big Three. They call them Javahos. Is it the Church of Latter-day Saints? Or is it just Christianity broadly? Because there's never been any battles within the realm of Christianity. But why Christianity? Why not Judaism? Why not Islamia? Why not Scientology? Why not Hinduism? Why not Buddhism? Does it have to be Christianity? I mean, that's where you go next. Because if the assumption is that we need a religion to organize society around, then the next question is, well, which religion? As Stuart Hayashi says, why not Zoroastrianism? Yeah, why not? And it also can't be Ayn Rand's objectivism. And Dave Rubin has talked to a lot of objectivist intellectuals over the years, which is one of the reasons why I think he's been good, because it turns out, I found out that a lot of newer objectivists, they were introduced to objectivism and Ayn Rand through Dave Rubin interviewing Yaron Brook and Rucka Ali and other ARI intellectuals like Onkar and Harry Binswanger and Greg Salmieri. But no, objective, I mean, it's not, it's an atheist secular integrated philosophy, so it can't be objectivism. Just go ahead and throw that right in the garbage, Dave. It has to be, society can only be organized around religion.
I believe him to be a deeply moral person. He's a good buddy of mine. We've
Yeah.
drunk many times, you know, like, I don't know if he would want that. We've had drinks many times.
Just drinks.
I don't know if he's
totally
drunk. I've
appropriate
been drunk.
amount.
I'll just
Of course,
say
he's talking about Sam Harris now. Apparently, they're still good buddies, and that's all speculation. That's all Sarah Hader's word against Dave Rubin. Don't know how true it is that Sam Harris has said that Dave Rubin's been captured by his own audience, but it definitely appears that way. Because, again, back in 2015, Dave Rubin was Mr. Open-minded, secular, classical liberal, and now he's saying that we have to align ourselves with the nationalists, the Christians, and the conservatives, and society ought to be organized around religion. This also doesn't mention the fact that the United States is not organized around any religion. The Declaration and the Constitution are both secular documents. I know Michael Knowles would argue otherwise. I did a whole rebuttal to his dumb lecture at Ithaca College a few years ago, where he made part of his lecture was making the case that America was always built on Christian values. And that's what a lot of conservatives are claiming. Dennis Prager says that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Ben Shapiro claims this. And they're not even Christian. And that's a huge assumption on the right, that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values. My ass it was. Of course, even if you grant that assumption, well, then why not go all the way? Why not have total biblical law? Why not have total theocracy? If Christianity is so good and America is good because it was built on Christian values, let's go all the way with a theocracy. Let's completely organize our legal system and our society around religion and its laws and its morality. It's morality of sacrifice.
But Michael Shermer, Peter Boghossian, I know plenty of atheists who are good, moral, decent people. Those ideas cannot organize societies. They simply cannot.
Simply cannot. Atheists and secularists, they cannot organize society. It's impossible. It's impossible.
That you can mindfully meditate. The way to
mindfully meditate.
Society simply does not work. And that, by the way, is why Jordan Peterson exploded the way he did. And that also is, by the way, with Jordan being MIA right now, is why it feels like there's a hole in the internet, doesn't it?
It does.
Because Jordan, not only did he show people that personal responsibility, clean your room is important, but he also said to them, there is something outside of you. There is some driving force outside of you that has been churned through the generations. I believe.
Yeah, the generations. That's what's really shaped you, folks.
The scientists and the philosophers and the atheists and all these people, they can come up with all the good stuff they want. They can meditate and they can think. That cannot. It offers no defense when the barbarians are at the gate. And
so yeah, he says the scientists, the philosophers, and the atheists, they can come up with all the good stuff, right? You know, they can maybe come up with robots. They can build robots and then send them to Mars to take pictures and send back to us. They can land probes on comets. They can build submarines, build airplanes. They can build touchscreen computers that fit in your pocket. Do all this wonderful stuff, but organizing a society, that's too tall of an ask, folks. Radical Liberty says atheism isn't a system to organize a society. It is a claim about... Exactly. I mean, you're right there. But what Dave is saying is that atheists and seculars and philosophers and scientists, they can't organize society. You need religion to organize society around. Also, this doesn't mention the fact that philosophers presuppose religion. I mean, does Dave Rubin honestly believe that there's some deity, there's some intelligent creator out there in some supernatural reality detached from this reality that created everything, that created morality and all that good stuff, and we need to base society around whatever that deity wants? Does he honestly believe that? Or does he believe that, hey, philosophers may have created religions as primitive forms of philosophy, and that's what we need to base society around? Because yeah, you don't get Christianity or any of that stuff without Plato and his world of forms, first laying the grounds for it. So philosophers really do presuppose religion, and then he says, well, philosophers can't organize society, but they can lay the foundations for and create primitive forms of philosophy called religion, and once they do that, then we can build society around it. What a bunch of malarkey. What up, Vagar? What's crack-a-lacking? And it doesn't stop there. There's another video I want to bring up that happened in this same interview where Dave Rubin talks about the left and right. Let's check this out. So Dave Rubin says we need religion to organize society around, and that's impossible for philosophers and secular thinkers to organize society. It's just impossible. But then he talks about collectivism. Let's check this out.
Because when people say far right, they always mean the KKK.
Additionally, I mean, it's just so insane that it's just an attack on reason. Saying that philosophers, atheists, scientists, they can't use their mind. They can come up with some good stuff, but organized society, we need to shut off our minds and submit our minds to the philosopher kings who can speak to the voices in some other dimension to tell us what to do and how to live. But again, at least it's not communism, right, guys? All right, so let's check out this other clip. What the...
Because when people say far right, they always mean the KKK or these white supremacists or something, but that's collectivist.
Yeah.
That's collectivist, which is an idea of the left. When people say far right, what you really mean is like the ultimate libertarian, like a Michael Malice.
Yeah.
So what's interesting here is Dave Rubin starting out by trying to redefine the left and right spectrum, and then you'll notice at the end, he just throws it all in the garbage. Oh, well, when we try to look at things through a spectrum, it's kind of ridiculous. So that's... Which and I too do use terms like left and right as general terms. And when I use them, I've defined this before, but I'll define it again. I view the so-called left and right as mere coalitions of various ideologies, some of which are in clear conflict with one another. But I mainly use it as general terms. I don't really think there's any such thing as leftism. There's no such thing as an ideology of leftism or the right wing. Right? They're just broad coalitions of conflicting ideologies. And here Dave Rubin, well, white nationalism, that's really on the left because the left is collectivistic and authoritarian, and so is white nationalism.
ANCAP, right? If we were looking at things purely libertarian, like a Michael Malice, that's collectivist, which is an idea of the left. When people say far right, what you really mean is like the ultimate libertarian, like a Michael Malice sort of ANCAP, right? If we were looking at things purely, I know the far.
I want to hear your version of it, and then I'll say.
Yeah, well, that's what I would say. That if you really.
So look at what Dave Rubin's doing here. Now he's playing into the hands of goons like Kyle Kulinski, who tried to package deal objectivism and Ayn Rand with anarchy and libertarianism. And he's saying that the spectrum shouldn't be left and right. The spectrum should be collectivism and individualism. And that's actually a proper way to think about it. But the error he makes is associating individualism with anarchy. And Michael Knowles will agree with him. Let's check this out.
The way I understand it is that if you look at left and right, if you strip away a lot of the nonsense, it's that the left is collectivist, and we can go really far left into crazy collectivism, and the right is really individualist, and we can go really far into anarchy, basically.
So there you go. Anarchy is a consequence of individualism. Now, this is complete nonsense. Anarchy is a consequence of nihilism, the rejection of all standards and morality and principles, including individualism. I mean, think about it. Is it in your individual self-interest to have no government, to have no laws, no objective laws, no semblance of objective laws to base society around, to protect your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property and happiness? Is that in your self-interest, to just live in a society of perpetual gang warfare? You know, trying to hire, competing gangs to protect your so-called rights. That's what a marketplace in force looks like. It is war.
Far left. This is sort of what people would call the horseshoe theory, that you come around. Yeah,
I agree with the horseshoe.
What am I missing there?
So
I'll give you some room here.
I think the horseshoe theory thing is right, and I think it's actually because that's
so. That's again. The dichotomy that Knowles and Rubin are painting here is collectivism gets you dictatorship of some form, especially left wing, and individualism, it gets you anarchy. Who the fuck wants those two choices?
Think about it these days, that we get very confused because we say, wait a second,
and that is the improper way of looking at it. The concept of the consequence of individualism is freedom. It's not anarchy. And anarchy and freedom are not the same, folks.
See, in some ways it's right wing because, I don't know, he's a big tough guy. He wants to be real macho.
All right, so people are complaining about okay, I'll never use filters again. I'm sorry, guys.
Go to tradition. But he's also clearly a left winger because he's usually an atheist. He's a collectivist. He, worships the state. So it just doesn't quite make sense. And then you get this horseshoe idea. But I think part of the reason we fall into that confusion is because we're thinking purely in a modern lens. Mm-hmm. So we're only thinking, we're kind of just assuming modern, or you could say liberal, or moving out of liberalism premises, that the individual is the building block of society. And so
no, it's not that the individual is the building block of society. No, again, it is the recognition that you as an individual own yourself, and you have every right to use your mind to make decisions in pursuit of your own survival and your own self-interest and your own happiness. So society should be organized around that idea. It's not that, how should we organize society? What's the real building block of society? That's a collectivist way to think about it. It's not that, we got to organize society. What's the building block? It's the individual. Okay, individual rights. No. You organize society around individual rights. You don't build society on, you don't start with society and say, should individuals have rights?
have at the one end the anarchist, who says the individual is the building block of society and we should only just have individuals floating around in free space, no rules. And then the collectivist, who says the individual is the building block of society and that's why we've got to gather.
Now, collectivists don't make this argument, especially the communists. They think that the proletariat is the building block of society, or not so much that, but that the proletariat takes precedence. It's all about the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie, my class group versus your class group. And the alt-right, they're talking about white nationalists and the alt-right. They think that the race takes precedence above the individual. They don't give a shit about individualism. So even Michael Knowles' analysis on this is completely wrong. Collectivists like the alt-right and the communists, they don't care about the individual. They don't start with the individual as the building block. They start by thinking of individuals in terms of collectives.
Up on the commune or in the fasci, like the fascists do, but both of them still have the same premise that it's all.
No, they don't.
The individual, and I think what conservatives are beginning to recognize, myself included, I mean, I wouldn't have thought this a few years ago even, is maybe it's not just all about the individual.
Yeah.
Maybe, of course, the individual.
Now, of course, months ago, when I made a video called "The Conservatives' War on Pornography," I brought up the fact that because this was like a 2-week debate on Twitter. People were having, the libertarians and the conservatives and the liberals. Should pornography be illegal, legal, blah, blah, blah. Michael Knowles came out and asked conservatives, is there more to conservatism than just protecting individual rights? And I definitely get the sense that Michael Knowles, and you'll see here, he doesn't really care much about individualism.
It's a sovereign creature of God. But maybe there is something else to conserve, like families and institutions and traditions.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you.
Because it's like there's this weird thing that happened in the 60s and the 80s, which is you had the hippies of the 60s and the yuppies of the 80s. You had the lefties who loved the Soviet Union, and then you got a bunch of people voting for Reagan. And it's either you can look at that as a contradiction, or it's kind of two sides of the same coin. The social individualism of the hippies and the economic individualism of the
the hippies were such individualists.
Maybe it's just the hippies grew up and wanted to have a nice car.
That is what it is.
So Michael Knowles and Dave Rubin are kind of implying that the hippies of the 60s, the people that were going to Woodstock and smoking pot and whatnot and doing all kinds of drugs, they grew up and became Reaganites. Well, I think some of them grew up and became part of the Manson family. But I don't know how true this is, because I know Steve Jobs was kind of a hippie and then became a businessman, but I don't think he was one of the hippies I don't think he went to Woodstock and smoked pot, but if anyone can correct me on that. But I'm not sure how true that is, that all of the Reaganites, all the people that voted for Ronald Reagan and went into the business world in the 80s, I don't know how true it is that they were all smoking pot and dropping LSD at Woodstock during the 60s.
Can do drugs and have sex with everyone and all of those things.
But then again, maybe, yeah, it is possible that some people, as we've seen with Dave Rubin, he used to be on the left, now he's red-pilled, now he's a conservative, saying we need religion to organize society around. As Wagner says, the hippies never grew up, they overdosed on heroin. Yeah.
You can do that as a hippie.
Or they didn't go into the business world, many of them went into academia and got jobs as professors.
And we know this with the baby boomers. What did they become? They became the Reagan yuppies, capitalists, individualists, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't even know, are we disagreeing on something?
Yes, because I'm saying that's bad. So my point on that is because it seems to me
the Reagan era was bad in the eyes of conservative Michael Knowles.
Assumes that the point of society should be self-interest.
The point of society should be... No, again, he's getting this backwards. The point of your life should be your own self-interest, and society should be organized that recognition. But he starts with society and says, what should the point of society be? This is, again, Michael Knowles and Dave Rubin. These are our warriors against left-wing authoritarianism, you guys.
But I actually think there's more to that. I think there should be public spiritedness.
Yeah.
I think we should want to serve others. I don't think, you know.
Listen to this, folks. There should be public spiritedness, and we should serve others. This guy's starting to sound a lot like Barack Hussein Obama.
Especially since I am Catholic and, you know, I have a religion that I don't think I just own myself and the, you know, my.
I don't think that I own myself.
Life is a free gift from God, and I'm not going to have a whole lot to say when I go out of this world either.
Yeah.
And so I think instead of viewing the world primarily through a lens of rights, either the crazy positive rights of the left or even the negative rights that the right wing likes to talk about, I view it primarily through a lens of obligation, duty, loyalty. I've got affection for my friends. I've got an affection for my family. At the highest level, I've got an affection to my...
He has loyalty and duty to others. We should be taking care of others. We should have public spiritedness. I don't own myself. I mean, how is this different than the you didn't build that mentality on the so-called left wing? But don't worry, I'm sure there's going to be a video within the next couple of years of Michael Knowles winning a debate against some blue-haired feminist at some university.
Country called patriotism, which now the
now you're going into the far right.
Now I'm the far right.
Yeah,
I am the far right. And I just think like that idea is not even on the spectrum that most people talk about.
Yeah. So that's why.
I mean, that's definitely on the collectivist spectrum if there is one.
Doing anything with like the spectrum is this, and it's like we all got to be within that, and the Overton window is this, and it's two-dimensional and all of that. Of course, you know, a lot of what we have to do as people that...
See, now notice how Dave Rubin, he just pivots. He doesn't challenge Michael Knowles on any of the nonsense he just said that, I don't own my life. We should have public spiritedness. We should be taking care of others. We have duties and obligations and all this goofy nonsense, and it's based partially, if not significantly, on Michael Knowles' Catholic faith. And instead of challenging that, Rubin just says, oh, well, whenever you look at a spectrum, it's not... And to a certain extent, he's right about that. But no challenge. Again, he was willing to challenge he's more than happy to challenge the left. He was willing to put his career on the line and his friendships on the line 5-6 years ago. But now he's friends with the right, and you don't see him challenging much. So in that sense... Let's bring it back up. Maybe Dave Rubin has been captured by his audience. Maybe Dave Rubin has overdosed on red pills. He's embracing religion. He's embracing the nationalist, conservative, Christian elements of the right wing because, hey, at least it's not the left. Where is it?
Agree with
I
that.
agree.
The focus on
with
is
that.
I agree with that.
We've all seen that Freedom Tunes. Again, this is I want to make this clear. I take no joy in criticizing Dave Rubin. I used to find him somewhat inspiring. I used to be one of his patrons. It actually disappoints me to see him cave like he has been.
So when people say far right, I think they actually mean...
Am I playing the video at a weird speed? It makes Rubin sound drunk. No, I've heard that Michael Knowles likes to throw copyright strikes, and I don't know how true that is. And I didn't want to play the whole hour interview and try to jump back and forth, so I just put filters on the video and exported them into QuickTime files. Now you know how sausage is made. Sorry for boring you, folks.